So this is the fret saw that I use to cut frets when it's freestanding like this, that I need to use as a stopper instead of using a jig or anything. It's not my preferred one because it's a push cut. I've got another one that I like better, but it's a pull cut and cuts much better, but this one has a stopper on it. So I set the depth based on the fret height of this little adjuster, and this is just a old fret that has the barbs ground off the side of it that I've used as an adapter tool, and I also use it to check my depth on the sides, for instance, of a fret. I'll run this through and look at the sides of a fret slot to make sure the depth is deep enough, and also works as a great clean out tool for it too. So that's kind of how I cut all the frets. I didn't show starting the frets, but I will use my other saw. It's a push, like I said, a pull saw. It's just a far better saw, this particular one, for it. It just doesn't have a stop on it. So I'll start all of my fret slots with that. You can just start where the prior slots were by seeing where they were, but also starting on each end and just bridging the gap between each end, because typically, even though they're filled, I fill them with super glue, each end is still a slight bit of recess on it and easier to find. But the reason why the super glue and everything is on pulling the frets, because they've been pulled and used before, I find that if you, on an old board like this especially, if you fill the frets in like I did with super glue, not only does it get rid of chips, but it starts with a fresh slot for the new barbs to hold on to tightly without being loose. So that's how I cut the fret slots again. And you can see on the board. When it comes to installing frets, I've pre-radiused. I've measured the radius on this board. It's about a 10, and so I've pre-radiused all of my frets and cut them to length. Radiused them a little sharper than they are, so probably about a 9. Running them through the radius jig, and if you've never seen a radius jig, it's just something like this that you run the wire through. It works wonderfully well. But I pre-radius those, and then I'll just be installing them with a special pair of pliers. I created this one from some pieces, but you can buy them. They're pretty pricey if you buy them. Either way, they're probably, even if you make them $100 to $250 or something like that, if you purchase them or make them from the components that they used to make these. So, but it's also, before the frets go in, I've taken a little triangular file and I've knocked the sharp edge off of every one of these fret slots ahead of time, and that way the shoulder of the fret will be able to set in there decently without any issue. And so I'm just going to slide this in, and let's see how this goes. If I can get lucky enough. You do have to make sure the fret goes in with a decent. Another thing on this, on the installation tool, is that I've using a fret radius caul that's a little bit, the top piece that presses in the frets is a little bit sharper than the actual radius itself. So I want to press the outer edges in first, and then I'll come back with a correct size just to make sure that the outer edges go down. Otherwise, it's possible the outer edges just don't seat all the way. So I like to do a 2-stage fret press with these. So this will just be just as simple as pushing it in. And going on to the next one. The hammer and frets, you can use a dead blow hammer and a variety of things like that. I actually like to use just a plain old ball peen hammer, and then I've got a hardwood dowel, an oak dowel, that I'm going to use to tap it in with. Until it is seated all the way. Go through my various frets here that I've already got pre-cut and in their slot. So it shows you that you can install frets without. To cut the excess off the frets, I'll use the same nippers that I used to pull the frets out with, because they are meant to cut flush as well. So it allows you just to cut flush right down against the fretboard. You have to watch for the chips to fly, so we're glad. And there they have the frets installed and cut flush. Not done yet though. They are just installed and cut flush. They still need to have the angles cut or rounded on them and leveled, recrowned, and polished. But that's how to install frets.